name for you.
Yo, welcome back to the Underestimated Podcast. Your host, Jeremy, we're back with another episode. All right, so today I've been kind of babbling around where my next few episodes are going to come from. Like, what are they going to be about? And I try to keep something different, or like a different sport or league or association with the episodes, every new episode. So I've been kind of beating around the bush with this episode, but I'm going to just go ahead and do it. Because I was going to do it at some point, so I guess I'm just going to get it out the way now. So with that being said, what I'm going to be doing today is a top 10 NBA 2023 Finals Championship contending teams. Basically, the top 10 teams that I think are going to be in deep contention or serious contention for the 2023 NBA Championship. Now, let me say this. This is very hard to make a list to make. I feel like there's so many great teams. And, with that being said, like, unless we're talking about teams like the Orlando Magic, um, Detroit Pistons, Washington Wizards, Portland Trailblazers, Houston Rockets, teams like that, I feel like it's like at least 15 to 20 teams that are just really, really, really good in, the NBA. That's why I feel like the play-in is such a vital thing because of, a team still kind of getting that shine from, you know, just winning a playing game off of a great performance against a team that was just doing great all regular season. Sometimes if you just don't do what you do in the regular season and you just happen to get lucky one night in the playing game, you can easily just work your way into a playoff spot. And so that's why I feel like with the NBA having so many great teams now, that's just such a vital thing to be very appreciative of. Because I feel like we're not going to end up with any bad teams in the playoffs. It's always going to be exciting to watch no matter who's playing, which makes things better from a viewership standpoint, and obviously makes the TV ratings and the money skyrocket. So now getting into the list, let's get started. So coming in at number 10, I have the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks is kind of what I consider to be the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA in a sense where, they win 2 or 3 games where they start off really, really well, and just the fandom of the team just immediately starts thinking championship, championship, championship. And we all know how Knicks fans are, They can win one game and they just, are highly scouted as one of the greatest teams of all time. I mean, that's not really no discussion. I feel like they definitely are one of the greatest franchises of all time. But they be just so quick to, make that statement, you know what I mean? With just the Knicks in particular. So I also see the Knicks as a team who it's just one of those teams that's like you kind of wonder how they get here at the end of the year, but they just always somehow end up, as of late, of course, to be in the mix around postseason contention time. So like dating back to the start of the preseason, the NBA 2023-24 preseason schedule, according to it, the preseason is supposed to start on October 5th, and their regular season is supposed to start on October 24th, meaning that we have about a month and some change before we get basketball back, which is great, which is beyond great. I love hoops and I miss hoops very much, even though like we just had it obviously with the Nuggets just winning the championship. So yeah, with the Knicks, they just re-signed Josh Hart to that that pretty big deal, having him locked in for the next 3-4 years or so. Congrats to him for that. He's very well deserving of it. He definitely brings them a great defensive capability and can also score at a very underrated level. I think he can score in many different ways, especially shooting the three. Um, they also brought in somebody who I personally did not like because it came from my beloved Warriors team, and that was Dante DiVincenzo. Not just one of my favorite players from that Warriors squad, but someone who I've been a fan of since his Villanova days, and who has now grown to one of my favorite players in the league. So it was tough to see him go, but at least he still get to play, very high level basketball in New York, and still, be around for me to see him as much as possible because I know they're gonna be in the playoff picture for a lot more years to come. So I'm at least, bittersweet, but also happy for that. Just looking at their roster though, you got obviously Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickly, Quinn Grimes, R.J. Barrett, Jalen Brunson, Evan Fournier, Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jericho Sims. I think that's all I'm gonna touch on though. So I think with the Knicks, this is all about the consistency. We all see that they can gel. But like I said, my problem and concern with them is the consistency. How far can y'all how long does that gel last for y'all in a sense? Um my thing with them though is probably the defensive side of the ball. There's no doubt that they can score. They got scores. I mean, they got Jalen Brunson, All Star caliber player. Julius Randle, another All Star caliber player. R.J. Barrett, who when he plays like that R.J. Barrett that we know him to be, I won't say All Star caliber, but definitely a superstar in the league. And will be for years to come. So the Knicks last year finished with last season finished with a record of 47-35, um, which means they won about 57% of their games, 32-20 in the conference, 8-8 in their division, and it also placed them placed them fifth in the Eastern Conference. So this year I can kind of see them being around that 6-7 spot. We also have teams that are just regular season catfishes, I guess you would kind of say. They just had this great regular season, and then when the playoffs come, they're a completely different team. And for some teams, that's a good thing, and for others, that's just is not that great. But yeah, that's where I have the New York Knicks sitting at number 10 on this top 10 contenders list for the 2023 NBA championship. Okay, so coming in at number 9, I have from the Eastern Conference the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Cavs are just one of those teams that I see that are like have a very, a great mixture of both young talent and a veteran presence as well. Because you look at the team, and they have guys like the younger guys like Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Isaiah Mobley, Ty Jerome, Karis LeVert, now Imani Bates, Isaac Okoro. And you guys are somewhat the veteran guys like Donovan Mitchell, Georges Niang, Jared Allen, Ricky Rubio, Danny Green. Giving them both a mixture of great young talent along with guys who are somewhat now to be considered as veterans in the league. Last year the Cavs finished fourth in the Eastern Conference with a record of 51-31, winning about 62% of their games, being 34-18 in the conference and 13-3 in the division. I think they'll, once again finish in that top four, um, ranking in the Eastern Conference. I kind of downgraded the Knicks quite a bit, but I feel like they'll stay in that same area of 1 through 4 in the Eastern Conference this year. And I think if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland can continue to be the great backcourt that they have been so far up until this point, the success for the Cleveland Cavaliers are at an all-time high. My also concern with them is defense, not necessarily from the front court, because I know they got the Twin Towers down there with Evan and Jarrett, but it's from Darius and Donovan, um, so to speak, because I mean those two obviously are who we are known to be as defensive players. I mean, I'm sorry, offensive players, and not so much defense. Not saying that they don't give effort. Plenty of players give effort, but is that effort substantial to actual success? Well, you know, actually, no, not with those two. Um, but we have also like someone like Isaac Okoro, um, to kind of assist them with that because he's in. I guess that would be he's a wing. He's that small forward, so he kind of helps them with that, so they don't become much of a necessity at that in that area, but not much of a liability either. Okay, so now coming in at number 7, I was really debating on whether to put the Bucks on this list or the 76ers. And I'm just going to tell y'all now the 76ers were unfortunately left off my list simply because I know how great Joel Embiid is. He just won MVP. He had my vote for MVP. He actually had my vote for MVP the last 2 seasons. I thought he should have got it over Jokic as well as this season of 2021 to 2022. Um, and I know that he can kind of get them to the playoffs. But with this James Harden situation, um, with the uncertainty of what's going to happen with it, that gives me enough scarcity to leave them off this list because I don't think um, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are going to be enough of a driving force to take them honestly past the second round. To be real, they'll be lucky to get out of the first, depending on who their matchup is against. And just before I started recording this episode, I heard a very interesting fact on my favorite morning show to watch, especially with sports, but just in general. Um, First Take with Stephen A. Smith. So out of every one of the players who have ever won the MVP award since it was created and invented, Joel Embiid has been the only MVP in the regular season, of course, not Finals MVP, but the only regular season MVP to have not been able to make the conference finals. And that is very alarming because of the player that he is. Joel Embiid will go down as, and maybe in most eyes now, as one of the greatest centers of all time. And for him to not have ever been able to reach the conference finals is very concerning because he's had the teams around him. I think I would say that best team that was constructed with the 76ers was that team that had Joel Embiid, JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons. That group was probably the most well constructed team that ever was built around Joel Embiid. But I think if James Harden kind of took over the role of James Harden we knew in Houston, and more so of not more so of the facilitator, playmaker, and passer that he wants to be now, I think they would be a lot better. But I think he's trying to kind of give that role to Joel and also somewhat to Tyrese Maxey. And I don't think that's just not good for business if you ask me. So I think, man, just Philly has a lot going on that side, and I know that Joel Embiid is getting very disgruntled over there, and it may be a matter of time before things get fishy and Joel says, "I want out of Philly," and I can't be mad at him or surprised because when you're that great, you have to capitalize on that greatness as early and as long as you can. Um, so I don't blame him at all for whatever he decides to do in the future, regardless of where his loyalty may lie inside of him. but more specifically of who actually is on the spot for this number seven spot, the Milwaukee Bucks, who had the not only the best record in the Eastern Conference last season, but the best record in all of the NBA, with a record of 58-24, winning about 70%, well 71% of their games, being 35-17 in the conference and 11-5 in the division. All right, so we obviously know the biggest thing when we talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's just, I mean, that's just simply when you think about the Milwaukee Bucks, you think about Giannis. Giannis is the Bucks. Um, Definitely a really, if you look at it, he's probably the best Buck of all time. Obviously, you could say Kareem or Oscar Robertson, but he's definitely top three. And I feel like it's really interchangeable. You could put anybody at any spot and make a strong argument for why you think that they're there. But I think the great thing that the Milwaukee Bucks have been able to do with Giannis in particular is not just, paying him his money and giving him the contracts that he deserves, is also what the team they've surrounded him with. Now they have guys like, all star caliber and one of the best defenders in the league in Drew Holiday. You know, you got Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, Goran Dragic, Brooke Lopez, Bobby Portis, Grayson Allen, Malik Beasley, um, Myers Leonard. And they're bringing in a couple of great guys, great young guys who can also help Giannis for years to come. When he kind of reaches that prime where he's old and kind of slows down just quite a bit, and Marjan Beauchamp, Jazion Gortman, Andre Jackson Jr., Lindell Wigington. I'm sorry. So guys like that. I mean, so they just have done a great job with surrounding him with the pieces to be successful as a team. And we know that if Giannis can stay healthy, because we know that he had various knee injuries that kind of prevailed them, really derailed them as a team last offseason, and they couldn't be as successful and couldn't reach really their full potential last season because of those things. But we obviously know when healthy that they can be one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous team in all of the NBA. But you got to have their two guys being Chris Middleton and Giannis to be healthy, or else we just won't get the same Bucks team that we're just used to seeing and what we know they can be. Okay, so another team that I'm kind of really just adding in honorable mentions here, but I feel like a lot of teams are just deserving of being talked about in this conversation. So this was supposed to be the Memphis Grizzlies spot at number six, but I'm actually gonna go with a bit of a curveball here and say from the Western Conference still, the Dallas Mavericks. Now, let me say this. My concern with the Grizzlies and why I just had to leave them off this list because I narrowed it down to just the top 10 is the John Morant situation. Now we know that he is suspended for 25 games due to just plenty of misdemeanor and misconduct and just overall inexcusable behavior outside of basketball. Now they have acquired um, Marcus Smart from the Celtics for, well, he was a part of that three-team trade that dealt Porzingis to the Boston Celtics. So my thing is, and they've also lost guys like, well, more importantly, Tyus Jones. So even though my thing is with Marcus Smart, I still feel like Marcus Smart isn't really a point guard. I'm all about the position point guard screams to me Magic Johnson. Like when I think about a point guard, I think about Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is although not the superior height of a point guard, the way he played the game is what screams more of a point guard to me. I know the game has changed and now the position point guard is just completely different to what we're used to it being. And just with the way Marcus Smart is, I just don't think he is, you know, a point guard. I've always just, he came into the league as a two guard, And so I'm just gonna always see him and portray him as a two guard. Now I would hope that they would move him over to the two guard once Ja Morant gets back, but I don't know if that's going to be. So if he gets suspended for 25 games, that means that they would have about 57 games to kind of jail, which is more than enough time. But although it's enough time, that doesn't give them the guarantee that they'll be, jailed as a complete unit before the start of the playoffs. I think it's very possible, with somebody like Taylor Jenkins, who's a very great coach and can rally his troops at a pretty decent rate, and a pretty high level. But it is very scary though to have somebody as great as John Morant, to have somebody alongside him and Marcus Smart, a defensive player of the year. It's great for him. Um, I do think that this trade though, with him getting Marcus Smart, makes them a bit smaller, because now that would more than likely force Desmond Bain to the three slot, with him only being like 6'4", 6'5". So now you have a 1 through 3 with a guy no taller than like 6'5", and that's a bit concerning because the average three, um, is probably about 6'6", 6'7", and don't get me wrong, it's not a wide margin between 5 and 7 or 5 and 6, but the inches matter and the height matters. You got to have size, and what I'm saying, not just size, but great players with size to win championships and compete at a high level in this league, because it's just growing to a game of size. But now to touch on who has the actual spot for me, the Dallas Mavericks. So a lot of people discredited the Mavericks because of the fact that we didn't get to see what we wanted out of Luka and Kyrie. Now with them having about a decent portion of last season with each other, this off season, training camp, all that, I think that this team now has the pieces put together, from a personnel and staff standpoint, to now make the playoffs and actually make noise and give fans, including myself, what we are deserving of from the production of what we are able, or probably going to be finally be able to see from this Mavericks team, and more specifically Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So I don't really understand what the big concern is with the Mavericks. I mean, I think they did a great thing. Now, when I did my very first podcast episode, it was the 2023 mock draft, NBA mock draft, and I was under the impression that the Mavericks were going to go out and get Grady Dick from Kansas, but as we know, that he ended up in Toronto. Um, but they ended up with someone who I think is still also very great for them, in Derek Lively. I think that's going to be a great addition alongside Kyrie and Luka, if he's able to start. I'm not sure if they're going to start him right away. They might bring him off the bench, but I'm sure he's going to get a lot of playing time with those two. With the fact that the Mavericks don't have much bigs, and he's like 7'1", 7'2", so he's going to be out there a lot for size purposes. For not only like that, but just getting offensive rebounds and getting more shots for guys like Kyrie and Luka and Josh Green and Jaden Hardy and guys of that nature. And I think also having a great coach like Jason Kidd, I just think finally the Mavericks have what it takes to give Luka an actual run for serious playoff contention, because they haven't been able to in the past per se. And with him just being a great sensational and generational talent that he is very more than willingly deserving of that opportunity. But I mean, believe it or not, this roster is actually pretty good. Like I said, Derek Lively the second, Kyrie, Luka, Tim Hardaway Jr. They brought in Seth Curry, got Christian Wood, Maxi Kleber, Rashawn Holmes, Grant Williams was brought in this year. Josh Green, Dwight Powell, Derrick Jones Jr., Dante Exum, gets another run in the NBA. Greg Brown the third, Theo Pinson, JaVale McGee. I mean, these guys have pieces, yo. These guys have pieces to really make some noise in the playoffs this year, and I feel like it's very much possible for them. Which is why I just bit the bullet on having them as my number 6 team on this top 10 list. Okay, so next at number 5, another team that I was very skeptical about putting on this list, but I know when they're healthy, they are very well deserving of being on this list. That is from the Western Conference, being the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, last year the Clippers finished fifth in the Western Conference with a record of 44-38, giving them a win percentage of 54% of their games being won, a conference record of 27-25, and a division record of 9-7. So we know that when healthy, the Clippers are a very dangerous team. The problem with them is being that dangerous team in the playoffs. They are one of those teams that are a great regular season team, and then when the playoffs come, they're just not the same team. Um, but now dealing with injuries from their two, stars and best players on the team being Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in the past couple of seasons, they haven't been able to necessarily reach their full potential and their high ceiling as a team because of those two injuries. But a report came out about 2 weeks ago from head coach Tyronn Lue saying that both of those guys are healthy and ready to go for the regular season. So at least they'll start off the year um, in both great shape and health. And I hope that they can remain that way because both of them are great players to watch because they're just both two of the most talented and better players in all of the NBA. Both greater all-star caliber players and are just arguably really top 10 players in the league. Um, so I just think that you surround those two with great guys, and I believe they have. They finally found their point guard, which was something that they haven't really had with the more specifically talking about the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard era. They haven't really had that point guard, and now you bring in Russell Westbrook, who despite what people have said about him in the recent years, I just feel like Russ is just still that guy, and I don't think anything would ever change that, no matter how underperforming you may think he's performing. I just think Russ is still just gonna be that guy, and I feel like the Clippers are the perfect fit for him because he kind of is able to just kind of play his role and play as the rest that we all know. He's not going to get hindered for taking too many shots or passing the ball too much or anything like that. He can just be Russ and just help the team to be successful in any way, shape, form possible that he, so subliminally can. But obviously not just Russ. This team is also composed of just a lot of great talent in general. Like I said, Russell Westbrook. They also have guys like Bones Highland, um, who was newly acquired mid-season last season. Brandon Miller. I'm sorry, not Brandon Miller. Brandon Boston Jr. is also a great young player in this league. Amir Coffey is not a scrub to me. Marcus Morris Sr., one of the better and best role players in all of the NBA. Kenyon Martin Jr., someone who I thought was a very great acquisition for them because of his athleticism and just him being able to kind of just not let his athleticism limit him as a player. He can do way more than just dunk the basketball and use his height and athleticism to be successful. He's way more than that, and I feel like the Clippers are going to bring that all out of him. But moving further, you got Terrence Mann. Obviously, we see what Terrence Mann did more specifically in the playoffs last season, kind of putting up ridiculous numbers and kind of being that vocal point to the Clippers' success in the playoffs last season, a little bit that they did have. Also, guys like Robert Covington, one of the better 3-and-D role players in the league, can kind of guard, the best player on the court at the time and can, hit spot up threes, can just shoot threes when needed. Norman Powell, definitely one of the better mid tier, I would say, players in the league. But, when hot, can definitely go for 30 any night. But also other guys like Nicholas Batum, Zubac, and Mason Plumlee. And we have a great coach like Tyronn Lue. I believe Tyronn Lue is probably if not the best coach in the NBA, one of the best. Probably top 3, 4, depending on who what your purpose is and what you think molds into a great coach. Especially with the way he's able to adjust in game. Um, part of their success in the playoffs, and not just the playoffs, but regular season as well, is the ability from Tyronn Lue being able to scope a team out very deeply and to make in-game adjustments for the team to be successful and kind of roll the tide and turn the tables on them being successful and being able to shape up on what they were doing wrong before he made that adjustment. So we know how well they play defense, and that's kind of been what their identity has been. Because when you have a great overall team defensive prowess, and then you have great scorers on the other side of the ball like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you're gonna have that overall balance to just be a successful team in general. So I believe like if this team can stay healthy, they can be dangerous, and could easily kind of slip their way into the conference finals. But there are on the the more talented and more competitive side of the NBA with the conferences, with them being in the Western Conference. So it won't be easy, but they have the team to still compete with the best of the best. And they're at my number 5 spot. I was about to say 6, but 5 spot. Now bringing it into number 4, I have from the Western Conference the Phoenix Suns. Another team that kind of concerns me, but at the same time doesn't. And I'm going to get into why in a second. So the Phoenix Suns finished number 4 in the Western Conference last season with a record of 45-37, winning about 55% of their games, with a conference record of 30-22 and a division record of 9-7. So looking at this Suns roster, the thing that we all saw was the blockbuster trade that they made this offseason, acquiring Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards for basically nothing. I think it was like campaign. Basically nothing. It wasn't, it was nothing to get Bradley Beal, but it really wasn't nothing to being the fact that Bradley Beal kind of wanted to get up out of there. So my thing with this team is they have the top end tier talent. That's no discussion. When you have guys like Devin Booker, one of the greatest of all time, and in my eyes, the greatest scorer of all time, with Kevin Durant. You add Bradley Beal onto that, that's obviously on paper that's going to seem very, very, very nice. What concerns me with the Phoenix Suns is depth. You have all this money tied into the guys of Devin Booker, KD, and Bradley Beal. For a second, I'm sorry. And then, not just them, but DeAndre Ayton as well. We don't know what's going to happen with DeAndre Ayton. I don't know whether they want to keep him around. Are they more so leaning towards shipping him off to somewhere else? I don't know. If I was them, I would keep him. I actually have a lot of faith in DeAndre Ayton. I don't see why they would want to trade him, but I can see with certain moments that he's had over the past couple of seasons why they would want to go ahead and ship him off. But overall, I feel like they should keep him. I think it's just better off for them to do, because you don't find many great centers in the league like DeAndre Ayton. But looking at where their potential depth lies is not horrible. I just don't know if it's sufficient enough to complement the big four that they have of Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, KD, and Bradley Beal. Because they have guys like Josh Okogie, giving them great defense. Terrence Ross, one of the better veteran players. Chimezie Metu, Damian Lee, NBA champion with the Warriors a few years ago. A great, not just shooter, but also shot creator and scorer as well. Bol, who's very underrated, one of the more underrated players in all of the NBA. And I feel like if they let him really get in his back, he can go for something crazy this season. Busy, Bismack Biyombo, Yuta Watanabe, a tremendous shooter. He can shoot the world out of the ball. So he's going to give them great 3-point shooting. TJ Warren, we all know, I feel like with TJ Warren, though, with them, I feel like it's whatever version they get out of TJ Warren. If they get the bubble version of TJ Warren, that's scary, because he was putting up like 25 in the bubble a couple of seasons ago. So it's just all about what version they get out of TJ Warren. But I think all things considered, he would still be a great player for them. Keita Diop, one of the more unorthodox players in the NBA. kind of know what we're gonna get out of him, but we know we're gonna get at least great defense and size out of him. So that's kind of unquestionable there. And also Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon's a great scorer, more specifically from the 3-point line, and I just think that the Suns are gonna be okay with this roster that they have, and also when you have a great coaching staff highlighting guys like Frank Vogel, who won, I think, a championship with the Lakers. Was he coaching? I think yeah, he was coaching that team that won the bubble. With LeBron and AD, and of course Dwight Howard, guys like that. And also David Fizdale, one of the other great coaches in all of the NBA, who kind of worked his way back into the league and is going to be a assistant coach for the Suns this year. So I feel like that's just great. They just have the personnel and the staff and the players to kind of just get it done. I don't know how far it's going to take them. They reached the finals one time in recent years against the Bucks a couple of years ago, but they weren't able to get it done. But my thing that concerns me now also with them is who is going to play point guard. I know D Book can handle the ball very well, and Bradley Beal as well, but they are both two guards. They don't necessarily scream point guard to us. So who's going to play point guard for them? Obviously, they let go of Chris Paul, who's now on the Warriors. So I don't know who plays point guard for them. I guess they're going to throw Devin Booker at point guard. I guess that's just what I'm just gonna predict and assume at this point. But I don't know how successful that'll be. I expect that there's allowed to be something like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, probably I guess Eric Gordon at the 3. They might have him at 6 man, but I guess him at the 3, KD at the 4, and then DA at the 5. So I don't know, man. They just have a lot of concerns, but I think they'll be fine. They just have to, figure things out and see what they're gonna do. But you can always make trades for guards. There's a lot of good guards in this league, um, and just because they aren't starting, there's some also a lot of great bench point guards who are capable of being starting, caliber point guards. But when you let go of both the great point guards that you have, being Cameron Payne and also Chris Paul, you kind of put yourself in quite of a steep hole. But I think they can find a way to work around it. All right, so now we've reached a point of the list where I'm actually pretty excited to talk about because at number 3, I have from the Western Conference my beloved Golden State Warriors, who finished number 6 in the Western Conference last season with a record of 44-38, winning about 54% of our games. We had a record of 30-22 in the conference and 7-9 in the division. To be honest, if I were to give you my bias, this is where a bias list, I would have put my Warriors number 1, which I know the way I do my list, so y'all know who's probably number 1 and who's number 2. But we'll get into it when their times come very soon. So with the Warriors, my biggest concern with us is the fact that we have somewhat of a size issue. Just into comparison to the other teams in the league, we don't have the size to kind of match up with most teams in the league, which is kind of concerning. But I think we just have the talent to give what it takes to win us a championship. Look at our roster. We have guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Gary Payton II, JaMychal Green. Now we brought in Chris Paul, who actually now I get to talk about because actually I haven't been able to talk about the Chris Paul situation because of so much going on. And I've actually had a friend who requested months ago, actually when it very first happened, he was like, "Hey man, get on your podcast and talk about it." I was like, "No, I'll do it when the time's right." And now actually we make it this, I can talk about it. So Chris Paul coming to the Warriors. How do I feel as a Warriors fan? My thing is why. I understand that it's a lot around the situation. We were forced to kind of make a decision between the now and the future. because of us, letting go of Jordan Poole. Many can make the argument that Jordan Poole, once he got his money, was not the same person, which can be very much true. I believe that was also part of the reason why Draymond Green threw a punch at him during a practice altercation that they had, which obviously broke the internet and kind of just did something to our team naturally that just broke the team spirit in a way. And Draymond Green also came out and said that for months he wasn't even able to talk to the team comfortably because he's Draymond's that vocal leader in the locker room and veteran leader that his voice needs to be heard. And with him doing that, he kind of just wasn't comfortable with doing that because of what he did, which is understandable. But now with Jordan being gone, I hope he's back to being comfortable and kind of being that veteran leader, and vocal leader to this team because we definitely need it on our team. But it all revolves around Steph Curry, and that's also another reason why Jordan Poole was let go. We have to kind of seize the moment for Steph Curry and take as much action as we can while he's still in his prime, which is why we are now building the team for a now situation instead of the future. Even though we still have a bunch of great young guys like Moses Moody, like I said, Jonathan Kuminga, Lester Quinones. I think I said that right. Ooh, you see how I did that? Lester Quinones. I think that's right. I think that's right. I heard his name before. Tracy. I don't know if it's Tracy or Tracy, but I think it's Tracy Jackson Davis. Who I thought was a great pick for us in the draft. I don't see how he even fell to us, but hey, the draft is always about excitement and crazy things happening. And I think Lester can be the new Jordan Poole, if you ask me, from what I've seen him do in the summer league. But we gonna see. Hopefully they give him the time also to do that. But we also signed guys like Dario Saric. I thought was a pretty great signing. It says on here that Iggy is on roster, but if I'm not mistaken, Iggy retired. But I'm gonna let that fly past. So back to Chris Paul. I love CP. CP is one of the other people who I think is the true definition of what a point guard in the NBA should consist of. And I love the fact that he's on the Warriors. My thing is him coming off the bench. I just think that we will not be successful if he's starting. We're already having size issues, and Chris Paul doesn't make that any better. Chris Paul actually makes that very much worse because Chris Paul is like, what, 6', 6'1"? That doesn't make that any better for us. You're going to have to accept the fact that he's getting on up in the age of his career, even though he's still great. He's got to accept the role of taking the backseat to Steph Curry and being the backup point guard, which is not bad. That's going to also bring out the betterment of the younger guys that he's going to come in with. He's probably going to play alongside a backup unit of guys like Gary Payton II, Kuminga, JaMychal Green, Lester Quinones, guys like that. Dario Saric to kind of bring out that next unit. I feel like that's just going to be great. So hopefully that is how it works. I don't, if they were to start him, then I would probably put. I guess they're gonna ship Looney to the bench if that's what's gonna happen, but I don't think that needs to happen. Looney is like our Iron Man. He plays pretty much every game he can when healthy. He don't miss no games. And we just need it on that team. He can get 20 rebounds a night if you let him. Like he's just that great of a rebounder for us, especially what he was doing in the playoffs. So I just think Chris Paul's gonna have to take that backseat to Steph Curry and just be our anchor on that second unit coming off the bench. That's the only way I just see us being successful. Oh, and how did I forget about Klay Thompson? My bad, and Andrew Wiggins as well, and Draymond Green, of course. Y'all know the team. Y'all know the Warriors. So obviously Steve Kerr is the coach alongside Kenny Atkinson, and Ron Adams. So that's my Warriors. So now at number 2, I kind of know how to do my list. The defending Eastern Conference champion, obviously from the Eastern Conference, the Miami Heat. Now the Miami Heat were the 8th seed last year, who went on to make history as one of the first 8 seeds to be doing many things. I don't know if it was making the finals or winning the final, or like in an attempt to win the finals. But just as an 8th seed last year, they did plenty of remarkable things, finishing with a record of 44-38, which got them about 54% of their games being won, with a conference record of 24-28 and a division record of 10-6. So you look at the Heat, and obviously they haven't found a way to get Damian Lillard yet. I feel like that's just going to take them over the top, and I would love that for you. I feel like that's the perfect fit for Dame. But now with this James Harden situation, you never know. You might be able to end up in Philly with those two guys being kind of on the same level as great superstar caliber talent in this league. That can be somewhat of a 3-team deal with both involving them. But hey, that's another conversation for another day. I feel like the superior best fit for Dame though is with the Miami Heat. Putting them alongside guys like Bam and Jimmy and Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero. Guys of that nature. I feel like that's just great for him. But they also have guys like Thomas Bryant, Kevin Love, Caleb Martin, Josh Richardson is not back on the team. Duncan Robinson. They lost Max Strus to the Cavaliers for just simply more money. But they got a guy who I knew was great in college, but everybody's game doesn't translate to the league. Jaime Jaquez Jr. just screams Heat culture to me. Watching him play in the summer league and just having that kind of Jimmy Butler mentality and ambition to kind of just go out there and do whatever it takes within himself to help his team win is just remarkable. And I feel like he's going to be a great addition to the Miami Heat roster. They might G League him for the year, but I hope they don't. If they do end up letting him play, they let him get a solid 10, 12, maybe no more than about 15 minutes a game. He's going to give them great production because he can definitely hoop at this level. It's no doubt in that. They definitely got a steal in the draft. I wouldn't say he was the steal of the draft, but one of the steals of the draft with Jaime Jaquez Jr. So with the Miami Heat, I feel like they've also just missed that point guard. They just missed that point guard. Don't get me wrong, Kyle Lowry is still great. Also an NBA champion. But Kyle Lowry has now reached the age where he is. Let's see, Kyle Lowry is. Now 37. Kyle Lowry's on 37. So obviously he's not the same guy that he once was. And obviously Dame would fix that with Dame only being like, 32, 33, 34. That's like Steph Curry age. So, and playing on Steph Curry like level. So, I think Dame would be the better option as of now, with Kyle Lowry averaging about 11 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists per game last season. That's more so what you look at it as of a backup point guard, which I feel like he would just play a great role in. But obviously, if they don't find a way to get Dame within, obviously before trade deadline, then he's just going to have to take over that spot of being the starter point guard for the Miami Heat once again. I feel like the Miami Heat will be back. Will they be back in the Eastern Conference Finals? Maybe we may see a Bucks Heat, Eastern Conference Finals rematch, but the Celtics are still here. So, and actually, I just realized that I looked at the Celtics off my list. Or we'll give them a nod. We'll give them a nod. Make sure we mention them. Well, then, yeah. Since we've finished the Heat, let's not talk about the Celtics. I actually forgot. I can't believe that. Oh my goodness. But they definitely deserve to be talked about here. So let's get into it. So with the Celtics, we all know that they've been here a couple of times. They just haven't been able to get it done. Obviously, we have questioned whether Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum can work alongside together. I think it's definitely possible. Like I said, with them, another team who I just feel like they just need that point guard. But now with Malcolm Brogdon, who's a guy who went on the Warriors for years now, being their starter point guard. I feel like that's great. I feel like I said, Marcus Smart's not a point guard, and they just were not going to be successful with him being the point guard. But I feel like they can be with Malcolm Brogdon being there because he knows when to go take a shot and when to get his teammates involved, and that's just the kind of instinctive player that he is, and that's what he's going to be for the Celtics. You guys got the pass to like Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Derek White, now Kristaps Porzingis, and I feel like that's a great acquisition to him. Because him and Robert Williams in that paint, now it's going to be very hard to score on the Celtics in the paint this season because just those two in the paint together is very, very scary. But that's just a little quick Boston Celtics nod. I forgot to mention them. I don't believe how I missed them. Peyton Pritchard though scored 61 points in the Pro-Am game a couple of days ago with the I guess some type of, I don't know what kind of promo it was, but he's been going nuts. He had about 92 points in a couple of years ago in another Pro-Am game, so he might be getting more PT this year. But I mean, Celtics got what it takes, man. You know, they got Joe Mazzulla as the head coach, so they got what it takes to be put together. I just feel like they'll be the Celtics are like a top 3 team in the East for me. So I feel like it's them, Miami, and Milwaukee. One of those teams will more than likely end up coming out of the East and representing the East in the NBA Finals this year. So now, bringing it down to number 1. Y'all know how I get with the championship stuff. If you are whoever is the most recent champion, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be number 1 on my list because I'm a firm believer in once you have the crown taken away from you, you got the crown. It's yours to be. It's yours to have until being taken away from you. So with that being said, at number 1, I have the Denver Nuggets. We know Jokic isn't going anywhere. We know Jamal Murray. This is his first full season back in a while, but he's only gonna get better with time. But I obviously knew before the injuries. Oh, I felt so bad for him that when Jamal Murray is healthy, he's a dog, and that just kind of came from what I seen him do in the bubble. How him and Donovan Mitchell was just going at it in that Nuggets and Jazz series. Now, do I think they're gonna run it back? It's very possible, but although the Nuggets are a great team and very dangerous, they are beatable. I don't think there's no unbeatable team in the NBA. So if they just so happen to get unlucky on the right amount of nights, they just won't be able to hoist that trophy again this season. But also great players like Michael Porter Jr., one of my favorite players in the league, and I feel like he's just being what he finally gets to be in the NBA and what we've all expected him to be. Christian Brown is a great player for them to have off the bench. They lost Bruce Brown, who was felt like was guaranteed to bring back from what Mike Malone was saying. But he's out there drink, so he probably didn't know what he was saying. But yeah, like I said, Jokic is not going anywhere. Obviously a former MVP. So I mean, they had the roster, basically the same roster that they had the championship roster. KCP, Jeff Green, guys of that nature, for like a veteran presence. So they got what it takes to run it back. I just don't think it's necessarily guaranteed. So that being said, that does it for the list. I appreciate you guys for listening in. I'm gonna go ahead and get this edited and get this out of y'all as soon as possible. So catch me again, actually tomorrow, because I start college on Thursday. So I'm gonna try to have at least 15 episodes out by Thursday, because I don't know what my schedule is gonna consist of with the upload and once I start college, but I have to figure it out with due time. So I'll let y'all know. I keep y'all updated and just bear with me like y'all always have so graciously, and I graciously appreciate it. Love you guys, man. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, don't forget to give the channel a 5-star rating. I always leave comments about which I think I could do better. I'm all good with the constructive criticism. Even my TikToks, you can always tell me in the comment section on the TikToks, whatever what y'all want to see. I'll try to get it out to y'all. So yeah, I won't see y'all Wednesday. I mean, I will see y'all Wednesday, but not naturally. I'll see y'all tomorrow and Wednesday. So see you guys tomorrow. Always remember to don't underestimate, appreciate, and I'm gone.